abandon wrong living, I make it God willing. Found a gold mine, about to make a damn killing. Used to be dope, now it's documents I'm handling. Eating every day like every day was Thanksgiving. Hitting my target, sharp shooter.
My name is Simeon Moore. I'm probably better known as ZIMBO or ZIMBO Freemind. I'm a musician, community activist, and a youth worker, I would say. So I grew up in Birmingham in an area called Aston. I would say I was a very good child. Probably not the best, but I was good. I was good in school, and I was really good at home as well. I also, when I was young, I joined a dance group called Footprints. This seen us touring. We started doing competitions, dance competitions and rapping all over the country. And we was basically winning all the competitions until it got to the point where they wouldn't allow us to enter competitions anymore. So we would then started to get invited on as special guests. It started when I was about 6, and that continued till I was about 13. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning this, because at that time, that was my childhood hobby. So throughout the week, I spent most of the days after school training. I spent the weekends, Saturdays training. I had a manager, so we had a manager as a group, me, my brother, and 2 of my cousins. We had a manager, and he used to take us basically every other day and train with us for hours, teach us routines, teach us how to write songs and things like that. And I did that continuously from about 6 till I was about 13. So that was my childhood hobby. That took away a lot of spare time and free time that I had and gave me something positive to do, as well as having a positive role model. So when I got to about 13, the dance group split, because we was getting to a stage where we was talking to record labels, we was talking to Virgin Records, our manager was talking to Virgin Records. So now money was getting involved. And for me, now that I look back, because money was getting involved, there was a dispute between the parents and the management. So the group split. I was no longer training anymore. I was still rapping, but that was by myself. I was no longer training. So from I was 13, my childhood hobby was taken away. Now, when my childhood hobby was taken away, this left me with a lot of free time and a lot of spare time. So I naturally started to hang on the streets. The area that I grew up in, there was mainly boys in the area. There was mainly boys. The area was very boisterous at the time. I'm still talking about the 80s and the 90s here. Our community was very different then. It's a very different community to what you see now. For instance, there was more of a family settings where the family ate dinner around the table. We was a lot more cultural as a community. So when you would go into a house at these times, you would hear reggae music, and it has a righteous message. You would see pictures of Bob Marley on the wall, Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King. There was a movement of, I'm going to say Black Power, where people was trying to stick together and fight oppression. So that was going on at that time. Then towards the 90s, everything changed. This is when you started to see the introduction of films like Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, and also gangster rap, like a lot of West Coast gangster rap. So this started to flood our community. This source of, I'm going to call it a source of information, because that's exactly what it is. Even though we see it as entertainment, we see it as music, but it's a source of information. It literally helps to program your mind. It literally helps to give you characteristics. It helps you to develop characteristics. So I was 13, no more childhood hobby. And now we're seeing the emergence of gangster rap and gangster films. I watched a film called Menace to Society. I say this all the time. I watched a film called Menace to Society, and this film had a very big impact on me, because the main character was a guy called Old Dog, and as far back as I can remember, that was the first person I ever wanted to be like. That was my first aspirations, to be like this guy called Old Dog from Menace to Society. Now, Old Dog was a gangster. He shot people, he sold drugs, he done all the things that you see gangsters doing. Now, I don't know why at the time that I wanted to be like that. I don't know why that seemed cool to me at the time, but maybe it's because of the environment. No, not maybe. It is because of the environment. the environment that surrounded me, the poor environmental factors that surrounded me. So my father left home very early. I was raised in a single parent household. My mum and 4 boys. I'm the oldest of the sons. So straight away, it leaves us at a disadvantage. There isn't no positive role models within our life. Now, I'm 13. My childhood hobbies are gone, and I now have no positive male role models. I've also started to take an interest in gangster rap and the gangster films. This started to program my mind and give me aspirations to become a gangster. When I was 15, maybe I started to get into feuds. So we started to get into beef, fights with other groups of youth from a different area. And I'm gonna be honest, at that time, we was getting picked on. So we was getting bullied because of the area that we was in. And then it got to the stage where we just says, we're not gonna stand for it no more. We started carrying knives, axes, choppers. As I was going into 15, 16, the beef, the warfare got more serious, where we started to get shot after. So the first time I got shot after, I was 16. And then the shootings just started to happen regularly. At this time, we started to get our hands on guns ourselves. So we started to shoot back, and then it became a gang warfare. When I was 18, was my first time in prison. I got arrested for firearms, Class A's, and possession of Class A's with intent to supply. I got 6 years. From that day on, I was in and out of jail. I was living a reckless lifestyle. I was running around with guns, trying to shoot people, selling drugs, and all the rest of it. Let's say 2005 now, I've come out after my first sentence. And I went in, I was 18, 19. I went in, I was 19. When I came out, I was 25, 24. So I was no longer one of the young ones within the gang or within the circle. I was an older one. The younger ones, when I've came out, there's loads of younger ones. These were, before I went to jail, they were kids. Now I've come out, they're all big, they've got beards, and everyone's a gangster now. So I just basically continued to go through the motions, back and forth, shooting. Then I started losing friends. 1 friend died, 2 friends died, 3 friends died. I think there was a space of 2 years. I probably lost about 12 friends and my cousin. And my cousin was with me when I got shot. My cousin was with me when he got shot. He's younger than me, he was 20 at the time. I picked him up to go and do something. We got seen, and our car was riddled with bullets. He got shot in the back of his neck. The bullet lodged in his jaw, and he was on intensive care for 4 weeks. That was my experience on the streets. I probably missed out loads in terms of prison sentences. I've been to jail 7 times. Like I said, I've lost at least 12 friends, and it's definitely more, because that was in the space of 2 years. Since time's gone on, a lot more people have died. So I was in a cycle of jail and death, literally. As a kid, I was smart. I was never stupid. I've always been good academically, but I was just given the wrong aspirations. Even before I was given the wrong aspirations, I was made vulnerable by poor environmental factors that I mentioned earlier, single parent households, poverty, living in an area full of crime. All these things leave young people vulnerable, mentally vulnerable, and that made me easily susceptible to take on negative characteristics. I hope that makes sense. So that made it very easy for me to take on these negative characteristics because I didn't see nothing else. I didn't see no better. And then even within my community, the men that looked like they were doing well were drug dealers, were gang members, were gangbangers. They weren't people working 9 to 5. There wasn't people with jobs. They were people who were selling drugs. So if I come out of my house every day and I look around and the people that are doing well they're selling drugs, everyone that's working doesn't look like they're doing well. Which way am I gonna go? I've actually believed there's only one way I was gonna go because I was programmed that way. The programming is real, and I think a lot of people misunderstand and think that it's a hocus pocus, but it is. There's a science. It can be backed by science. The information that you intake shapes your character. it shapes your character and teaches you how to be as a person. So I was taking in a lot of negative information, and this shaped my character, put me through years of jail, and put me through years of watching my friends die. So I'd say I got to about 27. When I got to about 27, I was unhappy with the way I was living. I was unhappy with the outcomes of my life. As a child, I always had a dream that when I grew up, I'd have my own business, house, car, the wife, you know, the normal stuff. I'm 27 now, and this ain't happening, and it doesn't look like it's gonna happen at all, the way I'm going, because what I'm doing, none of that's coming. I've got 2 kids at this time, my children are very young, but I'm starting to see that my lifestyle is reflecting on my children, because I'm very well known in the hood. I'm a musician, I make music. The music that I used to put out at the time literally shaped a generation. A whole generation within Birmingham and the West Midlands was raised on my music, and a lot of them became gangbangers, gang members, people serving life sentences now because they was raised on similar types of music. So like I was saying, I got to the age of 27 and I was unhappy with the outcomes of my life. In all honesty, I started to feel a bit dumb, because I remember being good academically, and I remember driving one time and trying to think about some of the things that I used to know from school and that, and I couldn't remember it, and I started to feel dumb. So I took it on myself to start learning. How could I change my life? If I wanted to change my life, how do you do it? How does it happen? And the knowledge that I started to learn, first I started to learn about my history of myself, the history of my people, and the great achievements that they have brought to the world and civilization. And that gave me a different kind of sense of power. That gave me a real power within myself to know that this is what my people have brought to the world, and this is what I can do. Then I also started to look into the science of the mind. I started to look into spirituality, and what I learned was that the sort of things that I was telling you. So what I learned was, it kind of allowed me to reflect and see why I became the way I became. Why did I start to take on these gangster and bad boy characteristics? Where did it come from? So I started to learn about that, and I went through a process of reprogramming my mind. So I'm talking about, over the years, I developed many habits that only put me in jail or living a life of crime. So what I had to do when I say reprogramming, I had to go through a journey of learning where I unlearned the habits that I had that was not serving me, and then I started to develop new habits. Yeah, and I'm still not there yet. This is something that was in 2013 when I started. It's 2021 now, and I'm still doing it every day. I'm still trying to learn and develop the habits that I want. So round about that time when I was 27 and I started to take on a new form of knowledge. I didn't come off the streets then, I'll be honest. I didn't come off the streets then, and I remember someone asking me, and they're saying, when you gonna come off the streets? And I said to them, you know, and this was 27, I said, yo, I'm already off the streets mentally, but physically, I'm still there, because coming away from it in your head is one thing, but physically coming away from it, I'll be honest, it's the hardest thing I've had to experience, even worse than losing friends, because you almost have to die. I almost had, like, the old me had to be crucified, and the new me had to take shape. So for me, it was one of the hardest things I could do. What helped though, I'd say around about 2012, 2013, I got involved in a Channel 4 documentary called 1 Mile Away. And that documentary was really about trying to bring about a truce between the Burger Bar crew and the Johnson's crew. I used to be part of the Johnson's crew. So the documentary kind of followed the journey of 2 lads trying to bring about a truce. I'll be honest, at the time, I didn't want no part of it. I didn't care about having a truce. I didn't care about stopping the war, because I didn't see how that would change my life. I'll be honest. I didn't see how that would change the community. So I went to have a chat with the guys who were making the documentary, and I basically just said to them, I don't want no part of it, because it's not going to work. You stop the gang warfare between Burger Bar and Johnson's, nothing changes. The only thing that changes is that I can go to an area where there's Burger Bar, and Burger Bar can come to an area where there's Johnson's. That's the only thing that changes. I said that in 2012, 2013. But also what I said is that, and I said it without even studying about it. This has made sense to me, because what I said was, look, if we stop the gang warfare today, all that changes is we can go to each other's areas. The issues that created it, because we think that gang warfare, we think gangs, we think knife crime, we think gun crime, that's the problem. No, it's far from it. The actual problem is mindset. It's a way of thinking. It's a belief system. It's a culture. That is the actual problem. So when I went to the documentary and I did my little, I gave them, because it was bugging me for a while to come and have a chat with them, and I wasn't really into it. So when I did go, I kind of just went to give them a piece of my mind and says, look, this isn't going to work because the same issues are still there. We still have the same mindset. The lady, Penny Wilcott, who was making the film, she basically said to me, look, wow, if you believe that changing the mindset and changing the culture is the problem and will really do that, why don't you do that? Go and do it. Let's do it. And basically, Penny, she hooked me up with loads of people in London and got me trained up, got me mentors. I was working with a company organisation called BritDoc at the time. They're called Doc Society now, but they helped me to start 1 Mile Away as a social enterprise. They helped me to do fundraising. So they helped me to kind of develop my skills to run a business. And I did that for like 2 years. Now at that time, I was under a lot of pressure, I'm gonna be honest. I had people from my own area wanting to blow my head off because I'm no longer gang banging for the set or whatever. And then there's still guys that I used to terrorize from the other side that probably still want to blow my head off. So I was going through a lot. And I'll be honest, at that time as well, I had the police physically trying to stop the work that I was doing. Like, police were phoning schools saying you can't have these guys in your school. They was doing loads of different things. So it took a very long time for me to get to the stage where I'm at now, where I work freely and I do a lot of my own fundraising and businesses. As we started 1 Mile Away as a social enterprise, and we was working for about 12 months, working for a year, I was still carrying a knife and working. I was going to schools. I was doing lots of things, but I was still carrying a knife because I was in fear for my life. And then within that time, I got arrested again and I went to jail. So I did 18 months. I went to prison, but that didn't change what I was doing. That didn't change what I wanted to do. And that didn't change my learning. So when I went to prison, I spent most of that time learning, reading self-help books, studying how I could change myself, change my life, turn my life around. And then I came out, started the company, went back to 1 Mile Away, which it wasn't really a company at that time. So I had to rebuild the company again. And then the same thing happened. See, I hadn't gone, like, this is a serious journey that you have to go through. This is why when I say it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, it literally was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, because I went back to jail again for dangerous driving. And so this is good for me to explain, because at that time, I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was working now, fully working. I was no longer carrying a knife. I'd done the sentence for carrying a knife already, and I'm out and I've gone back to work. I'm back in work. But some of the programs that are within my head, I haven't fully dealt with yet. And this is a prime one. So I was stopped by police driving. I was stopped by police. For some reason, I got scared. I panicked and I drove off. But I got released the next day and everyone was like, why did you drive off? Why did you go? Why did you run? Why did you get off? I didn't have no answer for them. I didn't know why. But I do now, because the actual reason why I drove off is because for the previous 15 years of my life, I spent running from the police. If I see police, without a thought, I'm getting off, I'm gone. So I developed an automatic response, a habit within my brain, within my head, to say, when I see police, go. So that automatic response kicked in at that time. Although I wasn't committing crime, although I was now a working man, that automatic response was still there. I got a 12-month sentence and a 2-year ban. I'd done 6 months. I came back out, and this is when I haven't looked back since, if I'm going to be honest. This is when we started DATS TV. So I came back out with a new vision, because if I'm going to be honest, we was doing a lot of mentoring. We was working with a lot of children, and the things weren't changing. There was still a lot of people, things are not changing as quick as I wanted them to, or they weren't changing quick enough for my liking. So I wanted to set up That's TV. Basically wanted to create the same thing as 1 Mile Away, create a media channel that would have an impact on the way of thinking of our community. So that's what we basically done. So now we produce content for YouTube and other pieces. Some of our lads are working on a film right now that's going to come out sometime at the end of the year. So we're doing a lot of work in that, and we use the content that we develop to go into schools and kind of develop. So we use the content that we use the content that we develop to go into schools and create discussions around what we're talking about, and workshops to working with a lot of the young people. Also, I'm a musician at heart, so I used to do a lot of music. My music was very negative before, and like I says, I negatively programmed a whole generation within the city, because it was a time when everybody in the city, even the guys that I was warring with, was listening to my music. Everybody, and not just this city, the whole of the West Midlands. So there was a lot of, I programmed a lot of guys to become this way. I would say I helped. I didn't do it by myself, I helped. Now, the music, when I was starting to do 1 Mile Away, I stopped making music because my belief systems had changed. I could no longer make music about robbing, killing, selling drugs. I could no longer make music about that. So for the next 3 years, I probably didn't make any music at all, because I've never been one to rap or make music about something I don't believe in, or I don't do. I keep it real. If you listen to my music from years ago till now, it's basically a story of my life. So I didn't do any music. I was running a business. And after about 3 years, I started to produce music again, but it had a positive message. Now, this was actually an issue, because it was too positive, and it may have been even too intelligent. Not may have been, it was too intelligent, because people were phoning me from jail saying, yo, it sounds hard, it sounds good, but yo, it's gonna go over people's head. People are not gonna understand it, they're not gonna get it. So I literally had to then go through a process of dumbing my music down and not being so intelligent with it, like literally. And I basically produced 2 EPs since 2016. I produced 2 EPs, which you can kind of see that transition where I'm trying to still be positive, but give it to them in a way where it doesn't seem like I'm preaching or anything like that. So I did that, and then recently, like last year, I was funded by the Arts Council to develop a new project that I'm developing. I've just finished developing now. We're going into marketing and promotion stages. I literally was shooting a music video for my first single last night. So now I'm kind of doing what I really want to be doing. I'm making music, and I'm getting paid to do it. It's a job now. And also I'm supporting my community with developing content. Like I bring a lot of people around me to work with me, and it's never like we're working. It's almost as if we have a saying, we call it doing road, man are doing road, they're just hanging around selling drugs. But sometimes I actually still feel like I'm doing road, because I'm doing what I want to do. It's not like a job, it's nothing like a job to me. I get up in the morning and I'm glad to go, okay, I need to work, what can I do? What can I go? I create my own work now. Maybe I'm gonna leave you with this, because at the time when I was going through changes, I was trying to come off the streets and I was trying to get a job for about 18 months. I was trying to get a job. This is before 1 Mile Away. Before I got started on 1 Mile Away, I was trying to get a job for 18 months, and no one would hire me, I'll be honest. Nobody would hire me, or it was like they wanted me to put me in a factory. They wanted to put me in a factory or put me in do some manual handling, when I'm a thinker. I'm very good academically. I don't need to be in a factory. So I was going for jobs which I had qualifications to do, but because of my background, they wasn't giving me no work. And this was going on for 18 months. There was a job that I was going for, and there was like 500 people applying for the job. I got down to the last 5. It was like an application process. You do an expression of interest, then you fill out an application, then you send your CV and all the rest of it. And I got down to the last 5 people, and I thought, yo, I've definitely got this job. I didn't get it. I phoned my mum. I said to my mum, yo, I didn't get it, I didn't get it. And my mum says to me, Sim, I'll be honest, it doesn't look like no one's going to hire you. You're going to have to go and create your own work. And I haven't looked back since. Since then, I haven't had a job. I've created my own work. I don't sell drugs. I don't do nothing illegal. I don't do nothing illegal normal. I work for a living, but all the work that comes, I create it. I either create it or people come to me because of the work that I've already done now.
I refuse to be a clone, so I stand out. Still beefing with the poetry, my background. I'm on a mission and I ain't about to stand down.
Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so at the moment, I've just started my final year in university. I'm studying business management. I'm also obviously running That's TV as a production company. We're creating content. We're creating lots of content, and we're trying to now develop joint projects for bigger, for like films and documentaries and things like that. So there's also a project that I'm running now, which has been funded by the Home Office, which is basically I do a live podcast every Wednesday, and we get guests on that basically tell their story, and we try to kind of draw out life lessons from other people's stories. Also, what we do with that, with the live, it's live streamed, so it's a podcast, but it's live streamed, and we use it to bring the community together to generate this positive discussions, but also solutions about what is happening within our community. So a lot of people have been watching, coming together to develop projects, just having conversations. And what we also have noticed is that a lot of parents are kind of forcing their children to watch it and things like that. So the podcast is doing very well. Alongside that podcast, I'm also running mentoring. So I'm running a mentoring program. That project's actually almost finishing, but we're continuing with something new. So I'm running a mentoring program. I'm doing a bit of work with some of the youth in a local studio. And then this is my life. So throughout my everyday, I'm helping people. Even if it's not part of my work or my job, I get phone calls on a regular, advice. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So my whole life is work, basically. There is one more thing that I wanted to say. And this is something that I live by now, because when I was growing up, I grew up believing I was a product of my environment. The rap music that I used to listen to, there was bars. I'm a product of my environment. And for a long time, I thrived on that. No one can't tell me nothing. I'm a product of my environment. Now, there was a time when I was in prison. I'm sitting in my cell. And as I said, this was when I started to go on my journey of learning. And as I was going on my journey of learning, I went to prison and I was reading a book. And in the book, it says, you're not actually a product of your environment. Your environment is a product of you. Now, I'm sitting in a cell and I'm reading this, but my environment is a product of me. How? I'm sitting in a cell. This is my environment now, prison. How the hell is this a product of me? And I sat down and I penned it. I thought about it deeply. Now, and I do this regularly now. I always think about my experiences to learn from it. So I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about, how is this a product of me? And then I remembered when I was a child, and I thought, when you was a kid, what did you want to be? Who did you want to be like? I wanted to be a gangster. I wanted to be like Old Dog in Menace to Society, one of the most notorious gangsters on the streets. That's what I wanted to be like. So, in reality, I did actually create my own reality. All it is that when I was young, when I was a child, and I seen the gangster lifestyle, I didn't know the harsh realities of it. I didn't know the real implications on it. I didn't know about sitting down in your house, thinking your door's gonna come off every morning, like having to get up early because you think your door's gonna come off every morning. I didn't see, even though we've seen it in the films, it wasn't a reality. You don't think when you want to be a gangster and you're a child. I didn't think I'm gonna watch my cousin get his head blown off. I didn't think I was gonna watch my friends kill each other left, right, and center. I didn't think that. I didn't think I was gonna go jail and see in and out of jail. You didn't think that. So at that time, when I wanted to be like that, that's what I became. But I then saw the harsh realities of it. So now I'm sitting in jail and I'm thinking, I am actually a product of my environment. This environment that I'm in right now, jail, prison cell, it's a product of me. I created this. Then I went on a journey to say, okay, then if my environment is a product of me, now I need to create my environment that I want, and that's what I've done.
So what's the most important thing that parents or carers or teachers can say to influence young people to stay away from crime?
So this is hard because it's for parents. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. Now, when I was telling the story earlier, a few things that I said on purpose because my childhood hobby. When I had my childhood hobby, that took me off. There was no time to be on the streets. I'll give you a prime example. My son's over there. He's a footballer. He plays at football academy. He plays at an academy. Now, he trains 4 times a week, and then he plays his games on Sundays. Now, because he does that, and as well as that, I don't allow my children to have loads of free time. So they don't have time to hang about on the streets, go and hang around with your friends. Oh, can I go and hang around with your friends? Why? What are you going to do? Like, for me, they have to be productive. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I'm like that because I know the implications if I'm not like that. Because, like, we talk about grooming. Yeah, we talk about grooming. And even a bit about county. Let's talk about county lines, because when they talk about county lines, they talk about grooming loads, like gangs are grooming children to go on county lines. I'm going to be totally honest and say, in my community, if we're talking about the black community, it don't work like that. Now, where the children are being groomed at home. They're being groomed at home when they're playing GTA, Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty. When they're watching YouTube and they're listening to all these rap songs, they're talking about kill this, sell drugs, this and that, all the rest of it, that's where children are being groomed. So by the time these youth hit the streets, when they're 14, 15, if you allow them as parents, they've already got those characteristics. So I'm going to be honest, like what happens a lot of the time is there'll be a 14, 15-year-old and the older gangster around. This 14, 15-year-old would try to be around them as much as possible. A lot of the time, they're begging for work. Bring me in. Let me do something. Bring me in. Let me. I want to make some money. And that's how it works because they've already been programmed with that mind. So for the parents, be very aware of the information that your children are intaking. You got to be on them like a rash in terms of what are they watching, what are they listening to, and that's not to say that you can stop it, because I don't stop my children. I can't stop totally my children from listening to certain types of music. And I believe I'm like a madman at home. Like, I'll go crazy. Get that off now. And not just, I want them, they have to understand. If you're listening to that, what is it saying? So now, okay, what is it saying? What is it saying? What is this teaching you? Because now I teach my children that these things that you're listening to are shaping your mind and your way of thinking. Everything that you're doing is shaping your character. So hopefully, they are raised with that knowledge. They're raised with that knowledge, because I believe if I was raised with that knowledge, I would have took a totally different path, because it would have gave me control of who I am as a person. It would have gave me control of where I want to go. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So in my home now, like my oldest children, if I have a moment of unawareness, my oldest children will say, "Where's your awareness, Dad? What are you doing?" Like, you know, they will catch me and I have to, all right, safe. I need to check myself. So because they've been raised that way. So hopefully they take those characteristics on and they consciously train their mind. They're not doing it yet, but it is about consciously giving your children characteristics. I do things to consciously give them characteristics.
You mentioned county lines just before.
Mm-hmm.
So some people in small towns and rural areas think that there's nothing happening on their doorstep. What would you say to them?
I'm going to say you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. And the people that say it's not on their doorstep, I'm going to be honest, and would say that's ignorance. Because people only see what they want to see. Do you know? A prime example, I got a friend that lives in London. And where she lives in a posh area. But 2 rows down, there's beer gang activity. Now, they would be none of the wiser. If they didn't have a relationship with me, they probably would be none of the wiser that this is going on, because it's out of their awareness. So it's a bit mad. I just on that, I'll give you an example, because I went into a school one time, and I only went there for a day, because I've gone into a school to do a lesson, and as I've gone into the lesson, I've been in a lesson, but some lads have come in. I don't know, something's happened beforehand. Now, one of the lads have come in like this. He's coming like this. Now, this to me means you got something on ya. To me, because I'm from the streets, this means you got something on ya. He's coming and sat down like this. Another guy's come in and he sat down like that. So I can already see that's going on. I've kind of flipped out and said, yo, I don't know what's happening here, but yo, leave that gangster shit at the door. Leave that gangster shit at the door. I'm going to deal with everyone like a king in this room. So you better start acting like it now. I kind of flipped out on them. But the schools call me back after and says, oh, the parents were complaining, saying that the children don't have no gang issues. Now, the lad was sitting down like this. He could have had a knife on him. For all that's what I'm thinking. He's got something on him. Do you know what I'm saying? But the parents are like, oh, they don't have them issues. So I was like, okay then. When something actually happens to your child, whether they go to jail and get a life sentence or they hurt themselves, like, you got to be aware. You have to be aware. Have to. And I'll just even, because it's not always necessarily your own children. Okay. So, for instance, my son is very good. He's far from aggressive and things like that. Yeah. So even to put him in a surroundings where it's boisterous, he's not even comfortable with, like, he's not very comfortable like that in those surroundings. You get what I'm saying? So my son's like that, but I'm still on him. I'm still on him as if he was, just so he doesn't even try to pick up those characteristics. Like, you have to be on your children like a rash. I'm irritating to my children, but I'm gonna be honest, it shows. No, what I do with my children, it shows, because I can send my children anywhere. I can send them anywhere, and I won't get complaints about them being rude. I've never had complaints about my children being rude. Like, people would want my children to go with them because they're so well behaved. They can come anytime. So even if your children are not like that, I still believe you have to be all over them. You have to be all over them, just for their protection.
What's been the impact of lockdown on the gangs?
I feel like it's made it a bit worse, because it's the vibration, the vibration of the community has been lowered all over. So everyone's a bit sadder than normal. Everyone's feeling a bit more crazier than normal, a bit more frustrated than normal. So obviously, like, there's a lot of lads out here with nothing to do. They're frustrated. They want to, like, even I get frustrated now. So imagine when these guys that are rolling around with guns and they're getting frustrated. They're probably like me. Me put myself back 20 years, or me put myself back 15 years, and come into times like this. It's just a time to cause havoc. I'll be honest, it's a time to cause havoc. Nothing's not going on. We might as well go and, like, okay, I'm taking you back now. So when nothing's not going on, we might as well go and look for the guys that we got war with and go and cause some trouble. We might catch one of them. Like, it's that kind of thing, because there's nothing else to do. So I'm going to be honest, and I feel like lockdown has been a hindrance. It's been a hindrance on changing the community. One thing that it has helped though, but that wasn't lockdown. That was because of, like, the George Floyd stuff and all that, where the community has started to come together. More people within the community want to see change now. Like, I believe the community is actually ready for it, where I don't think they was before.
So what will you be doing in about 5-10 years' time?
Honestly, I'm gonna probably be ruling the world. Now, but okay, so in 5 years' time, so at the moment, what I'm looking at is bringing the community together under one banner. So, like, I'm trying to bring the thinkers and the experts to create a community council where we begin to start governing ourselves and start to make the decisions about us ourselves. Because right now, there's too many people that are making decisions about us without us. So We're dealing with real leadership. We talk about 5 years. We're dealing with. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like. But we're dealing with real leadership, and that's not even me as a leader. I'm talking about a structure of leadership.
Who would you most like to collaborate with in your music, and how do you get creative?
Do you know what? The person I'd most like to collaborate with is Damian Marley. And in terms of how do I get creative, I like to just zone out. I call it zone out. I'll go to a place. So even when I'd say when I write my music, it's not really me that's writing. Because I go to a place, I'm gone. Even sometimes when I'm rapping, if it's not writing and I'm rapping, then I will get to a point where I'm no longer here. So I can't see my body. I'm just in my head now, music frees me up. So it's like when I'm writing, it's really not me. something comes through me and it just starts to come out.
So where do people check out your music then?
So right now you can go Spotify or YouTube. All you got to do is type in ZIMBO or ZIMBO Free Mind, and a lot of music will come up. Also go on my Instagram. I'm putting a lot of music on my Instagram now. That's ZIMBO_Free Mind. And I've got a Facebook page as well, ZIMBO Free Mind. You'll find everything on there. Start Googling ZIMBO or ZIMBO Free Mind and you start to see loads come up. Time to